Welcome to Firefly and I. I'm Anna, and I travel full-time in my van Firefly with my dogs Sterling and kitten Inara. Welcome to the show. Everybody, thank you so much for joining me, Sterling, and Inara again today. So today is going to be a little different, and I'm just going to tell you my story, who I am and how I came into living van life, intentionally living sort of this alternative lifestyle. I wanted to do this for a couple reasons. First of all, because, I hear from a lot of people all the time, oh, I wish I could live like this. I wish I could travel more. I wish I could do all this. And I really want to prove to people that you can do anything that you wish to do. It may take a little bit longer. You may have some obstacles to overcome, but I promise you, if you really want to do something, it's absolutely possible. So the other reason is that I have a really exciting news that this week my intentionally living online course is going up for pre-sale. So it's called Harness the Current: How to Grab Hold of Your Personal Power and Navigate an Intentional Life. There's a bunch that goes into this. It was created out of my work with corporate leadership and working with survivors of domestic and sexual violence, working in kids leadership programs, as outdoor recreation. I've taken all of that experience and created an online course to really help you take those steps forward. And part of me telling my story this week is to really show you that, I took those same steps. I used my training in these different areas to get myself out of a life that I was really unhappy with and into a life that I love. And I think you can do that too. And the last reason that I wanted to tell you my story is that I am here in Terlingua, Texas. This is one of my favorite places in the entire world. I often say that the mountains are my heart because I just can't live without them in my life. The oceans are really, my head because they really calm me, they center me. Listening to the waves come in and out is very meditative. And then the canyons and the desert are my soul. I feel more in touch with myself and who I am and my story when I am in these places than anywhere else. Something about the fact that so much can grow out of such harsh environments, and that there's this agelessness to the rocks out here, to the canyons out here. There's stars, that just make you realize how small we are and yet how magnificent it all is. So I encourage you to take a peek around Terlingua if you haven't before in these clips ahead. All right, thanks for coming back with me here, bearing with me. So my story really starts when I left the film industry. I really wanted to be a famous actress my whole life, and I moved out to LA pretty young, went to film school, and really when I was there, decided, this isn't for me. The Los Angeles lifestyle was just a little too hectic for me, and I found a lot of negativity in the places that I was at. Obviously, that's not all of LA. It was just my experience in LA. And so I went to the film industry in Santa Fe at that point, worked on this Italian miniseries, which was awesome, but eventually, again, realized I kind of wanted to be outside more. I wanted to go into the outdoors more often. And so I kind of started this journey in my 20s. And I won't go into all of the details. If you want like a full bio, you can always read that on my website. But what I want to kind of express to you all is when I was in my 20s, I was living with a lot of passion. I was going forward towards the things that I wanted in a certain way, but I was also running away. I was never content, and I didn't really take the time to sit and think, well, what makes me happy? And I think a lot of times when we're living in that way, when we're sort of chasing happiness rather than creating it for ourselves, we tend to fill those voids with other things. And for me, that was a lot of partying, a lot of unhealthy relationships with people who did not value me, whether that was with romantic relationships or with friendships. People around me were just not connecting with who I was, because obviously I wasn't connected with who I was. So how could they do that? And it sort of all came to a head when I was about 25. At this point, I had, traveled to Alaska and done all of this raft guiding all around the United States. I'd been living out of cars. I had been, starting to dream of van life one day. But I was just very unhappy, and it kind of came to a peak one night when I was pretty brutally I was pretty brutally sexually assaulted by somebody that I thought was a friend of mine. It's obviously, this is, kind of, I think, personal stuff to share on YouTube and share out there in the world, but I think it's been really a part of my healing process to be very open about it. I've worked with other survivors. I tell my story quite often. So this is something that I want people to know about me, because it was sort of a turning point, my first turning point in my life. Where I really started to see some of the unhealthy patterns. And that's not to say that it was in any way my fault or based on the unhealthy things I was doing. Obviously sexual assault is always, always, always the fault of the perpetrator. But it just made me see how much I didn't really like myself, and that I was running away from finding myself and finding the things that made me truly joyful in life, and not, just what I thought might be the next thing. And so I went forward from that, and I started to feel, passion about helping other people, and really kind of turned from just raft guiding and things like that, which are awesome and super fun, but I really found in myself this desire to connect with other people who had been through trauma and who had lived through similar circumstances. So I went back to school and did all of that, did psychology and women and gender studies. I worked in sexual and domestic violence things, but it was very triggering for me, and so I found myself very depressed a lot of the time. And that's when I decided to go into corporate leadership, because I really wanted to empower people who may feel disempowered, either by trauma or other things that they had been through in their life, people telling them, you're not good enough, or society telling them that this isn't what you're supposed to do. So I went into corporate leadership, and the kind of natural path of that took me away from these original motivations, and I started working with big companies and creating content for, older white men to then present to other older white men, and I wasn't really feeling that I was accomplishing what I had set out to do, but I didn't know how to reconnect with that. And then in 2018, I led a group of 16 friends down the Grand Canyon, and this was huge for me. I all of a sudden I have a master's degree in the psychology of leadership by this point, going down this river. And I learned more about leadership in that 27-day period than I did in my entire master's degree. We had crazy high water. We had, several members had been through some traumatic things and were struggling a little bit. We had, just group dynamics in general of 16 people grouped together with no cell phone service, no anything for 27 days. And we ended up having the most incredible trip of my life. And not only that, but the river itself and the canyon, as I was saying earlier, I learned so much from the desert and so much from canyons. And I really connected with myself in a different way. And that being said, when I came off of the Grand Canyon, I slipped back into old patterns. It's well known within the rafting, the boating community, that this Grand Canyon depression, that you come off of the Grand Canyon and you still, it's just so sad because you get back to what people call the real world, right? I think that there's this very intense thing in our society that if you're not going to work and being productive and living, in a very certain way, then it's not real. But down in the Grand Canyon, I mean, that felt more real to me down there with those people than I had ever felt before in my entire life. I felt more connected to myself. I felt able to move past some of my traumas and just be me. And that's how I wanted to live. But I came back and I lost myself a little bit coming back into this real world. I had this fancy apartment in Denver, this high-rise apartment, and this good job at a corporate firm with nice people, and I was on this career path towards making, good money and working these corporate things where I felt very accomplished. But I was so sad all the time, and I just missed the canyon every day. I woke up and just yearned to be outside and yearned for a different way of life. And so it was that moment I stood on the roof of this building. Of course, Kitty's going crazy here because she's a kitten. And I stood on the roof of this apartment that I was at, and I looked over towards the mountains just with tears like running down my face, and realized that I really needed to change something. That I was looking at all these Vanlife accounts, right, online, and just wishing that I could do that. And I took a step back and said, really, what's stopping me? And I sat down and I made a list of the obstacles in my way. And then I worked through all the tools that I've learned through my life doing corporate leadership, doing outdoor recreation, doing work with trauma. And I actually started sort of coaching myself, and I reached out and had a coach and had a therapist, and, and I just started to do the work to set this life plan forward. And a few months later, I, left the corporate track that I was on. I bought my first vehicle, which was this like Land Rover conversion thing that I've showed before in this channel. It's like really cool looking, but kind of crazy. And, I packed up all my stuff, sold a ton of it, got Sterling back into the van, which he was very happy about. And we took off and we started this adventure. And it's not easy, to create your own business, to, find the different income streams to make it work. Things break. You might be stranded in the middle of nowhere sometimes. It's a little bit harder to socialize at times as well. But, to me, that's all worth it because I'm finding joy. And instead of running away from things, instead of never feeling content and just saying, oh, the next thing will make me happy, the next thing will make me happy, I've chosen to grow in myself out of a place of love and saying, I'm content right now. I am happy with where I'm at right now. And I know that I can chase passion, that I can keep chasing joy, that I can keep growing and evolving and changing and, finding my values and my passions and what inspires me. And And I know that I can move forward in that way without being critical of myself and saying, well, this isn't enough. You aren't enough. That I finally learned that I am enough. And no matter what I've been through in my life, the pain that I felt, the worthlessness that I felt, that I can always come back to me, and that those things have made me stronger, as all of your traumas have made you stronger as well. We all have trauma in our life. We've all overcome something. But without those things, we wouldn't have resilience. We wouldn't have empathy. We wouldn't be able to connect in the ways that we do because we have gone through those, So again, that's my path, From that roof to today is about 2 years. I now have a van that I designed to be exactly what I want it to be. I have a job that I love. I'm creating things that I feel passionate about. I have wonderful little animals, which of course Sterling was with me through all of this and has been my guiding light throughout most of my life. And I'm meeting people along the way that continue to inspire me and create passion in me. So again, I wanted to share this with you all, just one, so that you know me a little bit better. If you're following along with my journeys, I think that that's important, that you know the real me. That not everything is like Instagram worthy fun, that I've struggled with mental health. I've struggled with trauma. I've been on that, like, I should do this, I'm supposed to do this track. And I think, all of us can benefit from hearing each other's stories. So I would love to hear some of your stories. If you want to comment them below, or send me messages on Instagram or whatever. I just really want to know where you're at and who you are. If you're following along on here, I want to get to know you. So yeah, so that's me. I am a very happy person now, and I really hope that if you're interested in sort of creating an intentional life of joy, and if you want to know some of the tools and workshops, visit the link below. Things are up for pre-sale, and I am offering some consultations to see if the course is right for you. Yeah. I hope to hear from you all soon. Remember to hit your notifications and subscribe so that you'll see my content every week on Saturday at 11 Eastern Time. That's 8 Pacific. Am I just saying words now? Now I'm losing my train of thought. I've been talking and talking. Yes, so 11 Eastern Time. And thank you for watching, for witnessing my story, for getting to know me, for making it all the way to the end. I appreciate you all. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Happy holidays, and I will see you next week.